Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel, guys. We're going to do an informal version. I have literally just finished, hot off the press, the citrus cleaner shootout, and here you can see the overall result. So if you want to pause this and analyze this data, make sure I've added up everything up correctly. Beyond just adding up these numbers, there's a lot of calculations when you're doing all the PIR stuff. So there's probably like 200 or 300 calculations I've had to make to get to the final result. So if there are any mistakes, my apologies, but I think I've got it okay. The most important thing is the ranking on the kind of the ones that I think, you know, the ordering and all that sort of stuff. This particular video, I just want to go through informally and talk about some bits and pieces and walk through the products as well. So the first thing I want to say is that when we pick these products, we are taking recommendations that you tell me you like and are hot. So we usually have a hot field. When you have a hot field, you know, it can be hard to separate them. So we really have to split the atom in order to separate these products. But that's just the nature of the beast. And I do feel sorry for the products that come last. So like Angelwax have won some of my shootouts. They're you know, I'm a massive fan of the brand. They're one of my top 5 brands. Got some really good stuff. This particular product, its downfalls for me really is that it's been designed to use in a snow foam lance, when I think you shouldn't limit yourself like that, and you should open your instructions up to allow people to play around with it. You know, because people not into detailing, like myself, are a bit more cautious when they follow the instructions. So this, strictly speaking, is just a snow foam pre-wash, or citrus pre-wash. The main reason it hasn't done well, because the instructions are good, the packaging's good, you know, it's not a low quality chemical or anything like that. It just hasn't been able to clean as well. And I've noticed that when I used it as a pre-wash on road film, it didn't really cut through it. So it's not powerful enough for me. And that was kind of shown there in those dirt simulator tests and the tar tests. Pricing and all the rest were kind of decent. But because of those results in cleaning power, it's put it in last place. And yeah, to be honest, as much as I love the brand, I want a bit more cut. You know, I want a bit more power. Really want to see it do well in those powerful tests. The argument is it's been formulated to be mild because they're worried about that power. But that is why we also do the safety tests on soft and sensitive surfaces. And those chemicals were left for like 12 hours, which is ridiculous. And so if the strong ones haven't damaged it, then I can't see the negatives in simple layman's. So yeah, that's that. Next up, Valet Pro coming in 11th. So the Angelwax got 35 points. This got 38.5. The Valet Pro, before I started doing this test and I opened them all up and had a look at them, and I've used this one before, I thought this could be a contender. This could be like one that's going to win. It's really like, the product is it must have dye in it, you know, like quite a strong dye to make it orange, but it has a really nice scent in it, and the product has a really strong foaming action at 8:1, and it's a great one to just use in a bottle at 8:1 as a citrus, you know. But again, it's advertising itself as a pre-wash. The instructions are very kind of short and sweet, and limiting. If you follow the instructions, they limit you massively on how you can use the product. I'm not too worried about that in the real world, but it has been factored in my tests. But again, the reason this is down here is just because on the dirt simulation tests, yeah, it did, you know, in the bottom order, it didn't come last, but 3rd and 4th, and didn't touch my tar. So even though it's well priced, it's nice to use and foamy and smells amazing, it just needs to have a bit more poke to get higher up the field. The Autobrite Direct one, well, out of all the ones you can go and get in Halfords, this is an extreme concentrate that actually goes up to 1 to 100. But however, at 1 to 100, or even at 1 to 50 relative to the other extreme concentrates, it wasn't able to cut as well. But it can cut. I think it did reasonably well. Where is it? Yeah, it's sort of 7th when it's pound for pound. So it is quite concentrated. But I guess just to cut a long story short with this one, there's just products that have outperformed it. But the instructions are well written, it's versatile, and you can use it for lots of different things. It's good that you've got an extreme concentrate in Halfords. Next up, the Infinity Citrus Pre-Wash. I think this one should really be ranked a bit higher based on its cleaning power. Cleaning power on this product is pretty good. Where is it? Infinity Wax, yeah. So fifth and fifth, that's fifth. So only 4 products were more powerful than it, but it didn't strip the tar or impact the tar. So if it could have just tipped the balance on the tar, it could have worked its way quite decently up the field. And it's bang on market average price, but again, a bit like the Valet Pro, I think there are just better products that have performed better. So it's got lost in the herd. Next up, the AutoGlanz Sprizter. This did really well in the pound for pound degreasing test. So at 5% PIR, I think it was the 4th best. So it's also one of the mega concentrates that you can use up to 250 to 1. But when I did the 1 to 50 test, where it's really at a disadvantage, AutoGlanz Sprizter, yeah, well, it still comes 7th at 1 to 50, which wasn't bad. It was better than all of the other extreme concentrates, apart from the Citrus Magic. So it's not bad, this stuff. It really isn't. It limits itself by saying it's only a pre-wash from a testing point of view, which some people, you know, new to detailing will look at it and say, I want to use it slightly differently. I don't want to just pre-wash my car with it. So I think they could broaden the horizons with the instructions. And I think when it prices itself at £45 for 5 litres at its normal price, I know it's promotion and there's deals and stuff and you can get a really good price on it. But, you know, this is 13 quid all the time. And there's other ones that are 30 quid that do promotional deals where they're cheap. So I have to go by the recommended price. At £45, that has stopped me buying 5 litres of this, because I've known this product for like 8 years. I was involved in naming the product. I come up with the name. But yeah, I think it is powerful, but if it was more closer to £30, I think it would have come a bit higher, maybe even above the Virosol. So yeah, it's good quality stuff, that is. The Autofinesse, this one has ranked a lot higher than I thought it would, because it's heavily penalised on its concentration. And it's expensive at 35 quid for 5 litres, considering it's a ready to use. However, and when we diluted it down 5% pound for pound, it didn't do anything, because it's just not powerful enough. It's not designed to be used like that. But when you use it as recommended, it was decent on the dirt simulator. Not the best, but it's decent. But it was really good on tar. And I said in some other videos, I used this after 2 track days. So my car here had track rubber on it and bugs, and I wanted to do a quick wash on it, so I sprayed the Infinity Wax, the Autofinesse all over it, let it dwell for a bit, and just used a soft tip brush up there. And as I was working over it, the rubber didn't come off initially. I thought I'm gonna have to go over it with TARDIS, and I just carried on knocking all the bug splatter off. And after about sort of 4 or 5 minutes of it soaking, I went back up to the to the rubber, went over it very gently, and it just lifted it. So it does have a good impact on rubber, and it showed it has a good impact on tar, which probably tells me it's got a decent amount of limonene in it. And it's quite a good product. It's just a shame that it's more retail-y and more ready to use-y, because then you cannot get the value out of it. Not bad stuff, that is. You know, probably might. I've got so much citrus here. I was going to say I might keep it, but stop. I've got too many products, so I'm just going to keep the one that wins. The Chem Citrus Clean, and I think this has outperformed. It's probably fair to say at £30, I'm less likely to buy this product. When they discount it, although I don't factor that into my test, when you get it for 14, I've used it, and it's decent. It doesn't feel as limonene as some of the others. It can get you down your throat a little bit when you mist it around. It's not quite as concentrated as some of the others, and it can calcinify, or something can happen where it goes a bit murky and you can get little bits in it, which I've experienced outside of this review where I've bought it. But yeah, I mean, that's not bad. That's not a bad showing. I would probably put this down here somewhere, because I think I prefer some of these ones, but that's just where it's come out. That's why we do all this testing. Now, over to the Virosol. Now, this one, yeah, really, I was really interested in this because 13 quid, or you can actually get it for like a tenner for 5 litres, and you can use it up to 200 to 1. First thing I thought is this is going to be loaded with all sorts of cheap and nasty surfactants. That's what I thought, and it's going to be really harsh, and I'm not sure if I want to use it on my car. But what I can say about the Virosol is it is a proper citrus, and it is not, it doesn't appear cheap and nasty, and it doesn't seem to do anything to sensitive surfaces really, as far as I can tell. Yeah, it's fine. And I would probably use it. The thing is, this is a candidate of one to actually use because of its price point and because the fact it is a real proper citrus and it is decent. The problem is it's not as good as some of the others at that low concentration. It starts to come into its own for car cleaning above 5% PIR, whereas some of the other ones, they can match it and show they're stronger than it at 2%. So there's just slightly better punch out there. But that, I really wanted that in a way to do well, because I'm going to follow my own recommendation on here, and that would save me a hell of a lot of money buying that. And you sort of think, well, if they can sell it for 10 quid or whatever they're pricing it for and make a profit, you know, well, all these other companies are making a fortune in margins. I mean, they're not a detailing company, so they're probably selling this on an industrial scale all across the UK and maybe in other countries as floor cleaner and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, basically there are bigger margins being made on these products. There's no two ways about it. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but these companies are a lot smaller. They're selling a lot less, and they need to make those margins. And this is what this testing. That's why it's important to get a product like that into this testing, because is it worth paying the scene tax for detailing products? And in my experience, it generally is, but there's a limit, isn't there? There's a limit. So I always look for value as well. That's not bad. Fifth place, and I wouldn't put that there if I thought it was, you know, dodgy or you needed to be careful with it. That's a decent quality citrus at an amazing price. Next up, Shiny Garage from Poland. They need to fix their labels because apparently this stuff can strip ceramic coatings. What's to say about this? Let's just go with the positives. This is coming 4th place. This is really strong. Okay, this is really powerful. When we did our 5% PIR test, it came first and picked up 20 marks. So all at the same concentration on my dirt sim, that was number 1. That's an important test because that's an across the board, same power, same mix, you know, bang, and it did it. So that this is up there as a candidate of one that you might want to pick, because everyone's interested in that maximum horsepower thing, aren't they? Like, we all like the idea of good horsepower. It's 30 quid. Can be a bit tricky to get 5 litres, although I'm going to chat to him round about that, see if he can stock it. I think he stocks 1 litre, but see if we can get 5 litres of it. There is other stuff going on in there. Now, I think there's some sort of like sodium-based cleaners in this stuff. So to remove my dirt sim, you need to be able to degrease, and that APCs can remove my dirt sim well. And this is more a TFR, which is another limiting factor. The only Achilles heel of this is it didn't do anywhere near as good on the tar film, where surfactants are less effective, and that solvent's going to come into its own. My APCs can't touch that tar sim at all. Well, they won't touch that tar sim. They're no good. If you try and use an APC on bug splatter and stuff, it'll work to a point, but it won't work on track day rubber. I've tried that. Even my beloved Surfex isn't great on track day rubber. So it's that limonene that dissolves it. So I think the Shiny Garage, I don't know if I'm speculating, but it's very powerful, but it might be powerful not just because of the citrus oils. And I can smell that fishy smell in it. But that's a cracking product. especially for the professional detailers that want a very quick, fast-acting TFR. Very good, very good, very good. Fourth speaks for itself. You're on the brink of greatness. And now we go on to greatness. If you make it onto the podium, you're doing something right. StjarnaGloss Forst X. So when I had all my products all lined up and I bought and everything like this, I looked at this and thought, this is a pretty bottle, but it's got no chance. Got no chance. Why? Because it was dilute 1-to-1 with water, and it costs quite a lot of money. Hard to say, but I think this was 16 quid. But if there was a 5 litre version of it out there, it'd be at least 38 quid, which was the non-Forst X. The Forst X, they currently don't do in 5 litres, but I reckon it will come, and who knows how much that will cost. But this is an expensive product. I will say that they went from Forst, which was undilutable, to give people a bit more value for money with Forst X dilutable. If you're going to go to dilutable, it'd be good to go beyond 1-to-1, because like I'm telling you, that at 1-to-50 is really good. At 1-to-50, which is 2% PIR. So I can, anyway, I'll talk about that in a while. So if you're going to give a concentrate, and maybe try and get your price down a bit. However, that's all the negatives done. When I just played around with this and did a video on it, as soon as I put it on the car, I was like, Jesus, this stuff's strong. It's really like concentrated. It's really strong and it busts out. It's like you spray it and it just blasts off and all that whiteness comes out. You could probably dilute this beyond 1-to-1. Maybe they're being conservative. It's very strong. And this, so it's heavily penalised because of concentration, heavily penalised because of price. It got a really terrible start. Where are we? So down here, like it's lost a lot of marks here. It's lost a lot of marks on the 5% PIR where we're using it way diluted. But when I put it on the dirt simulator at 1-to-1, it was the most powerful, So quite simply, when you get all of these products and use them as instructed, although you could argue that all these concentrates, you could go higher, but you pick a sensible range. This one sort of strips the dirt off the best. Okay, and also on the tar at 1-to-1, it was like the only one that was really starting to break the tar down initially. So very strong, and very impressive, and everyone loves that. And it really kind of has an oily feel, rich feel to it. So it's like loaded with limonene. This stuff, so oily. Just a really good quality citrus, well branded, nice, good product for me. And the only reason I won't be buying it is because I have already gone through it. You can see I've used hardly any of this Citrus Magic. I've used lots of this. When I fill up my my spray bottle with this 50/50, I'll plough through it because I just do. And that's what stops me using it over these next two, but very good, top class stuff. Next up, Wax Planet Roadkill. This was a surprise to me. When I got it, I looked at it, the bottle and the label, not quite as good as some of the others. When I open it, it's got that crunchiness to it, which is all probably, again, might be certain surfactants, who knows, but I don't like that crunchiness. And it does have a little twang of fishiness to it as well. So there might be some other strong surfactants in this. The instructions could be better because it doesn't actually tell you to rinse it, so it just tells you to apply it and that's it. And really at that point, I've done everything I can think of to criticise it. The pricing and the concentration, it loses a few marks on there, and the instructions, etc. After that, it suddenly puts its foot down on the accelerator, second in both pound for pound cleaning and, whatever ratio, mid-range ratio it recommends. I did leave a little bit of footprint on my test panel when it left for 12 hours. But you'd never leave something like that at a high ratio on the panel, so I'm less worried about that. But this hasn't penalised it massively, but it did leave a little footprint of whiteness or something like that. Fine, funny enough, on the polycarb, which you'd think would be even more sensitive. So I don't know, but if it doesn't damage polycarb, I'm not too worried about any of this. And it did pretty good on the tar simulator, and come in with a really good stonking score. So yeah, that's a powerful product. This is like a bit like the Shiny Garage for me. They're sort of similar, smell similar. They're not the same, but they're sort of similar in my head, even price-wise, although I think the Wax Planet one was a little bit cheaper. So yeah, that's snuck its way up into second by being very, very powerful, which is good. It doesn't have the mega concentration though, so you can't, you know, at 1 to 8, you can get some value out of it, but you can't get the massive value. But pound for pound, it's still very strong. So again, on those instructions, you could probably delve in there a lot deeper and say you could use this at a very low ratio, and you could use it in a lance. You know, give people the option. And then we go on to the winner I kind of talked about in the main video. This stuff performs when you use hardly any of it. Let's just go up and have a look at the score. So it's value for money just based on the price, not the concentration. It's just bang on market average price, okay? So nothing special about the price. Concentration, great. So use it up to 100 to 1. But that's based on the manufacturer claims, okay, at this point. So it's like they could all stick that on the label effectively. So I'm still cynical at this point in time when it says 100 to 1. The instructions and how the brand are telling you to use the product is exactly how I want to use a citrus wash. And that mould thing is important. I think Virosol got the mould. A couple others might have got the mould. But the fact that they tell you can use it as a general purpose cleaner and you can use it on interiors in up to 100 to 1 is what I want to do. I also want to be able to use it on anything. And so many of these products in this lineup are limiting themselves by being a pre-wash, when citrus isn't always a pre-wash. It's a general purpose cleaner for certain types of contamination. So it's important to get that. It's not going to mean that it wins or loses, but it's important. The instructions were okay. There's 2 typos on the label, and the label could be tarted up a bit, but it's okay. It's generally good. Dirt simulator test, really good at 5% PR. I can't remember what that is. 15 means 3rd or 4th, something like that. Excuse me. Dirt sim at recommended ratio. Well, that recommended ratio, I didn't know what to put really. So all the high concentration ones, I went tough on them and used 1 to 50 because I thought, you know, let's go tough on them, because maybe you could just stick that on the label, you know, and they don't actually perform. And a few of them, to be fair, didn't at 1 to 50, the high concentrates. But this one performed the best out of the high concentrates, even at 2% PIR. And that once I'd done that second test and I saw what it did to the dirt sim at 2%, I was like, ooh, that's very good. It didn't stain the paint, it didn't stain the polycarb, and I think I used all the high concentrates at 1 to 25 on the tar, because 1 to 50 is asking a bit too much. Yeah, 1 to 25, 1 to 25, 1 to 25, 1 to 25, yeah. I didn't expect it to affect tar at all, because that is tar, and it's dried tar as well. It's going to be really powerful to start breaking that down, and it did. Now, it wasn't the best, because the StjarnaGloss melted the tar off, but it melted it off at 1 to 1, okay? That's 500 ml water to 500 ml product. This melted it off at, oh, Jesus, 40 ml product. Is that right? Yeah, 40 ml product to 960 ml water, roughly, something like that. Which is incredible, really, isn't it? It's incredible. So this one, I'm not picking on Autofinesse here, because this did all right and it's a decent product. But this one is able to match this one, or even outperform it, when you use either 20 ml or 40 ml. And then the rest of it is 960 or 980 ml of water. So by buying the concentrate, you're not buying the water. You know, I'm not saying that's 960 ml of water either. It might be more surfactanty, or it might be something else. And I'm also not saying there isn't a valid reason why they've gone down the ready-to-use route. Some brands will. But when I do my recommendations and stuff, I run it through the machine. This is the machine, and that's what comes out. And then when I do these videos, I give you my thoughts. And what I want to use is something where my chemical cost isn't massively high. Because these cleaners, same with snow foam, same with APCs, you go through them very, very rapidly, you know. And so the more concentrated they are and the more water you mix them down with, when they're found to be really powerful, then you're onto a good thing. Because my chemical cost for mixing up a litre of this at 1 to 50, or let's say 1 to 25 is, I don't even know what it is, you know, 10p, 20p, 30p, 40p, I don't care. And that's as opposed to whatever this is, 16 quid, so you get 2 litres for 16 quid if you like. Or this one, which is however much it costs, you know, what, 10, 12, 13, 14 quid. I go through that so quickly, and then I'll be back. So my cost per wash, if I use a quarter of a bottle of that, could be like £3 or £4 as opposed to, you know, 3 or 4p. But before I go and recommend those concentrates, you've got to do this kind of due diligence and proper testing. You've got to give the ready-to-use ones a crack of the whip. Usually the ready-to-use are the whipping boys in these tests because they get smashed. But that's the first time a ready-to-use, or near ready-to-use, or it's not quite ready-to-use, has come third, and that's come mid-order. It's because they're decent products, really. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this one. I knew midway through, I did a video on my Unplugged channel that you can go and watch. Halfway through, once I'd done all the degreasing tests, you start getting a little pack of front runners. It's like a race when all these, the thing goes down and all these products start hurling out the boxes, and a few of them are ahead. And like by the midpoint, the K.K.D, Wax Planet, Shiny Garage were probably front running, and then you had like StjarnaGloss, Virosol, maybe Spritzer, maybe the Infinity as well, like kind of chasing close behind. So yeah, at that point I was just interested to see if this one was going to do well on the tar, and if it was going to cause many problems with residual staining, and it didn't. So yeah, I think been a really interesting test, and I'm glad to chalk it off because I've worked my way through virtually every genre of detailing products now. You know, if you follow the channel, snow foams, we've done the same thing, done it twice. Shampoos, we've done it. APCs, we've done it. Now we've done citruses, we've done glass cleaners, we're going to be doing glass sealants soon, we've done waxes. Soon my body of work will be complete. And I want to be able to look back on this, and I'll be using kind of most of the stuff, if not all of the stuff that I've recommended. And so will lots of you guys now. So these recommendations have got to be good. They've got to be spot on. You've got to test them properly. And yeah, really good field. And this is very, very good citrus cleaner. Yeah, worthy winner. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. I'm loath to say what I'm going to do next because someone will jump in there and do it before I get a chance to. That's the way it works. But they won't be testing it like I am, that's for sure. We'll be testing this. Any test I do is going to be, everything is going to be tested to hell and back, because that's where my interest lies. So yeah, I've got the glass sealant one that I'm going to be doing with Pro Detailers. We'll be testing that to hell and back. And then I've got an idea after that of what I think I want to do next. So take care. See you later. Adios. Don't forget to subscribe. That's the most important thing. Subscribe.